Hello and good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for the next installment of Avenues to Advocacy. I'm Holly McPhail, a longtime advocate and volunteer with Children's Week, and I will serve as your moderator for today's workshop. These virtual workshops are a new addition to the Children's Week cadre of programming, and they're designed to provide information about children's issues to help you become a more influential advocate for children and youth during the 2021 legislative session. We are focused on a variety of topics impacting our youngest residents, from healthcare to early learning to social justice, and of course, today's topic, after school and beyond. We have a wonderful panel of experts and advocates in the field with us today, and they will each be diving into the topic of youth development and the long-term impacts and opportunities for our state's youth, our future workforce, and overall our community health. But before I introduce each of our speakers, I do just want to share a few housekeeping items. First, if you are joining us live, we want you to engage with us. Drop your name and location over in the Zoom chat. Utilize the Q&A function. The session is designed to be interactive, so don't be shy about asking us questions. If you're watching this as a recording, a special thank you as well for making time to hear our panel of speakers. If you have any questions about the content that you'll hear over the course of the next hour, please feel free to reach out to info@childrensweek.org. For each of our speakers, their full biographies are available in the Whova app under speaker profiles. You can also use the Whova app to access the slides and the handouts that are going to be shared today. With that, I think we are ready to get started. I'll introduce all four of our speakers first, and then they'll each have an opportunity to present, share some information about what they each do, representing their different organizations, and then we will open it up for live Q&A. Our first speaker today is Mr. Brian Hickey, the director of the Florida Afterschool Network. His organization coordinates statewide efforts to ensure that Florida's children and youth have opportunities to participate in engaging, safe, and quality programs during out-of-school time. Our second speaker today will be Miss Samantha Vance. She is a certified youth and leadership coach and wears many hats. Today, she joins us as the Community Engagement Chair for the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention State Advisory Group. Our third speaker is Mr. Dan McGrew, CareerSource Florida's Vice President of Strategic Policy and Performance. Mr. McGrew has dedicated his career to helping others achieve their education and career goals, and joins us today to discuss how apprenticeship and entrepreneurship programs are shaping our future workforce. And last but not least is Miss Mary Chance. Mary serves as president for the Consortium of Florida Education Foundations. Collectively, these nonprofits that she represents raises more than $83 million annually to help innovate learning in local schools, including a one-to-one legislative match that hopefully we're going to learn a little bit more about today. And with that, Brian, you are up.
Right. Thank you, Holly. I appreciate it. And thank you for all of our guests here today. Thank you for joining us and for our great panelists here to join us. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits of after school and really some of the, benefits of after school and summer learning are well documented. And then I'm going to kind of step into some of the gaps that we have really understood before COVID, and then how COVID has affected that. So, Holly, you can go ahead and hit the next slide for us, please. So this Florida After School Network really stepped into the work of understanding the benefits of after school, and took some time to map that out and really look at how after school and summer learning are supporting the state of Florida. The benefits are well documented. They support mental health with friendships and mentorships, healthy development with physical activity and emotional relief, improving academic performances with increased math and reading skills, increases in school attendance, works with decreasing risky behaviors by improving in feelings and attitudes and indicators of behavioral adjustment, really working on the reduction of behavioral problems and connecting to the reduction of substance abuse. After school and summer learning programs really support working families, allowing those employees to be more productive for our employers when their children or youth are in a safe, productive environment. After school and summer learning programs also are supportive of creating tomorrow's workforce with building foundational skills, including communication, reliability, and time management skills, including also problem solving and teamwork. This is really across the spectrum with K through 12 foundational skills on the younger groups, but then also connecting to the older youth with internships, externships, apprenticeships, and exposing those youth to a wide variety of career fields. In addition, one of the bigger problems that after school and summer learning really has been able to address is summer slide. And that's something that we are going to be seeing a lot more of now due to COVID. So some of the work that the Florida After School Network has stepped into, and Holly, if you can hit the next slide for us. The Florida After School Network created the State of After School report. The network really stepped up and evaluated and found more than 8,500 programs throughout the state of Florida. Now, this is an incredible opportunity for communities to look at the report and understand where gaps of services are and see how they can step up to fill those gaps. With more than 2.2 million youth from ages 5 to 14, programs would need to hold more than 250 youth per site. This was all pre-COVID numbers, and we understand that COVID has exacerbated these gaps even more so. After mapping the 8,500 after-school programs, the Florida After School Network did GIS digital overlays, including instances of child welfare per county and instances of juvenile crime per county, allowing community and state leaders to really look at how after-school programs and identifying gaps and supporting these programs with supports and funding to build on those gaps. The report was really designed to draw conclusions of increasing high-quality after-school programming that reduces the instances of child welfare and juvenile crime. COVID has intensified these gaps and the accessibility issues and connection challenges. So now more than ever is really our time to talk about not cutting supports for after-school programming and really building up and increasing them. We all know that after-school programs are essential to the support of our children and youth and families, and they really stepped up and became the safety net when COVID hit, addressing the challenges and supporting our first responders, healthcare workers, and essential workers during the COVID-19 pandemic. After school and summer learning programs were flexible and quickly established supports of in-person and virtual programming in the beginning and throughout the pandemic that allowed many of our local economies to keep moving. Their agility for these programs should not go unnoticed, and with feeding youth and families, not only just with one day, but with days and up to a week supply of food, sharing resources for organizations to obtain supports in the community and PPE, and then also supporting youth and families and mental health. And really that's where our supports for the after school and summer learning programs and looking at how we can build upon and increase that net. Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate the overview. Our second speaker is Samantha.
Hello and good afternoon. I'm so happy to be here today and talk about two very important things that I'm passionate about and so interested in. And those two things are the importance of juvenile crime prevention and social emotional learning. As Holly said, I wear a few different hats. And today, related to youth after school and what I also call outside of school programs, I'm wearing three different hats. So hat number one, I serve as the executive director for Ladies Learning to Lead. It's a statewide organization that prepares young ladies for college, careers, and life, those in middle school and high school. Hat number 2, I serve as the chair for AMI Kids, which is an organization I love that creates a pathway for youth from a troubled past to have a successful future. Very, very important work that they're doing in our state, and actually they're a national program. And hat number 3, which is where my focus will mainly be today. Last year, I was happy to be appointed by the governor and DJJ secretary to serve on the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention State Advisory Group. Say that 10 times. The mission of the State Advisory Group is to effectively administer and manage federal allocated funds for juvenile delinquency prevention. So we ensure compliance with the federal Juvenile Justice Act mandates, and we partner with the governor, the legislature, and the Department of Juvenile Justice to and community leaders across the state to assure that we build a better and safer Florida for youth and families. I was also selected as the chair of the Community Engagement Committee, as Holly mentioned. And so my job in that role is to learn and engage with youth programs in the state that assist with delinquency prevention. So that's a huge piece of what we do. And additionally, for my committee, as well as the entire group, we regularly seek comments, recommendations, and opinions from juveniles currently under the jurisdiction of the juvenile justice system. And from that, we coordinate a crime enforcement plan to reduce juvenile crime as a focus, as a whole for our state. One of our goals, and why today is so special and important for me, is to collaborate and partner with after-school community agencies. Educational institutions also provide those after-school services. I was once an after-school kid, a program kid who went to Big Brothers Big Sisters, was a part of Big Brothers Big Sisters, went to Boys and Girls Club, and those organizations really helped to shape my life, and those are actually organizations that I support today as an adult. So we understand the importance of after-school programs, and collaborating with them is the key, because those needs of the at-risk youth are very vital to the growth of our state, our nation, and like people say all the time, the youth are our future. Also, the success rate is high. There's for the great impact that after-school programs have on young people. So one of the slides I want you to see gives you an idea of just how many youth are being served. This slide is from the DJJ Office of Prevention Services, and it's a report that gives you a look at the 2019-2020 numbers of how many youth we have served in Florida in after-school programs. And from that year, as you can see on page number 3, there are, and I'll just keep talking, there are 4,990 youth served in after-school programs in 2019-2020. As you look at the slide, you can see the racial ethnic disparity. You can see the racial differences there, and how it impacts the state as far as those individual numbers are concerned, male versus female. So those are two very important areas, especially when you're talking about organizations that serve only boys, and those like Pay Center for Girls that serve only girls. These are important numbers to know. Also, there's another slide that specifically points out the racial ethnic disparity. It's an actual racial ethnic disparity benchmark report. And as you can see on that slide, it gives us a look from 2018-19, which is the most recent report, of the statewide average for arrests. And when you look and when you break it down, if you go down a little bit more, you can see the breakdown from Black, white, Hispanic, and other. especially with the times we're living in now, these are really important numbers to understand and know. And going forward, I hope this wave of diversity, inclusion doesn't stop just in this era, but continuing to inform ourselves and become knowledgeable about these numbers will help us to effectively serve the youth throughout the state and just in even our local community. So as local leaders, advocates out there, teachers, whomever, these are really important numbers for you to know. And I believe Holly is going to share the links to these at some point. Okay, she is. So you all can see those things. The last slide I want to share with you gives you a look at several bills that are related to after-school programs and the youth that we're serving. And I encourage you all to look at these. This is just a list that I put together of some of the House bills and Senate bills that are out there that I encourage you to follow during legislative session, which starts next week, first week of March, and goes through May. These are really important bills to follow that are relative to serving young people in the state. And there are more bills out there, but these are just some that I would like you all to see that are really important. So I actually have the pleasure of serving two organizations that have those bills to help with crime prevention, and that's a major focus for the organization that I lead and the other organizations in the community that I serve. In closing, I want to say that many of our after-school programs, like AMI Kids, PACE Center for Girls, Ladies Learning to Lead, and others, give youth an opportunity that they don't get in other places. So when you all listen to us about after school, it's not just about going somewhere after school just to be there. These are actual outlets for these young people to have effective, successful futures. When you think about it as an adult, we all have outlets, right? And we have easy access to outlets as an adult to have a great effect in our lives and to help us to be better. We can get in our car anytime and go to the gym. We can go to the Whole Foods is one of my places where I just get a lot of good energy, and I'll walk in Whole Foods and feel good about myself. I can easily go to the beach. I can go visit a family member or a friend and have different outlets so that I can be better. Our youth don't really have that. So I really encourage everyone today to think about the outlets that young people need to have so that they can feel supported and be at their best. After school programs do that, hands down. They're the best at doing it. And I'm hoping that our state leaders, our governor, and many of you on this call today will focus on helping our young people get more involved in those after school programs. I will leave you with one of my favorite quotes, just a quote that I came up with. And it is, give our youth the opportunity to be seen, felt, and heard. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samantha. We appreciate you being with us today. And I know as someone who works in the after school field, inspired by that last quote, and it helps direct what we do. Our third speaker, and as a note, if you have specific questions for Brian or for Samantha or for any of our speakers, please use the Q&A function either found in the Whova app or at the bottom of the panel. You should see a little Q&A icon, that's little thought bubbles to utilize to ask any questions. With that, our next speaker is Mr. Dan McGrew.
Thank you, Holly, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today and represent CareerSource Florida, really to talk about two things we're very excited about, which are apprenticeship, entrepreneurship, and overall youth. So make that one big thing and two topics. But I'd like to start out just by giving you an overview of CareerSource Florida. I've got a short video that'll highlight one of our pre-apprenticeship programs. Then we'll talk a little bit about apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship and their role in building Florida's workforce. So for those of you who may not know, CareerSource Florida is our statewide workforce policy and investment board. We develop policies and strategies that can help make investments for the Florida workforce system. And we represent 24 local workforce boards across the state, each of which is connected to their local communities to help businesses find the talent that they need. We focus on targeted industry sectors that have opportunities for growth in our state, industry sectors like healthcare, manufacturing, aerospace and aviation, financial technology, just to name a few. But our role ultimately is to collaborate with education and community partners within these sectors to ensure that there's a sustainable talent pipeline to support business growth throughout the state. In 2019, Governor DeSantis signed Executive Order 1931, which really aims to make Florida the #1 in workforce by 2030. And in order to do that, that requires a focus on competency-based training and credentialing. And CareerSource Network supports this executive order through helping Floridians attain higher wages through skill building, providing training opportunities, and working closely with business to ensure their alignment to their needs. So I'm going to transition to apprenticeship, and in doing so, I'd like to just share a short video from our CareerSource South Florida, who sponsors a pre-apprenticeship program through Homestead High School. So Holly, I'm going to go ahead and share this. I got the sound right. And
my name is Douglas Baptiste. I apprentice in building trades and construction, and I go to Homestead Senior High. It's like basically what it feels like to be on a construction site already. You understand that you come here to work and you want a job after high school.
Most of your contractors want to get people into their company that know the basics. They know how to measure. They know how to use the tools properly. They know how to use them safely.
I'm learning the on-job safety, how to use power tools, how to communicate with other workers properly. What are some of the tricks and trades of the construction and being on the job?
It helps build one's mindset, helps prepare them for a job or career in the construction industry.
I want them to go into construction and enjoy it like I did for years. I mean, I want them to understand, hopefully at a younger age, that the opportunities are here and that they could really make a good living.
We are in this class his apprentice, and he's our mentor, and he taught us what we needed to learn for the future and for our jobs. And he didn't only just teach us that, he also taught us life lessons.
I think school systems now have a wonderful opportunity to help provide career and technical education to the students, to provide them just an ounce of experience on what the future may hold for them, to see if there's something they really want to go into.
You can just brag to people, hey, I built that. And it's like, really? And it's like, yeah, I built that.
Nice.
I love that smile, and I love that what he says, hey, I built that, right? And really, when you think about apprenticeship and what apprenticeship is, apprenticeship programs really provide a way for employers to build a candidate from the ground up rather than quote unquote kind of find them or buy one in the workforce through employment searches. Apprenticeship opportunity really combines employer-driven education through an earn and learn model where individuals like Mr. Baptiste can learn on the job while earning a wage, right? Through on-the-job training programs, while also receiving formal education and industry credentials and wage increases along the way. Pre-apprenticeship programs like the one you saw here in the video really are programs that are designed to prepare individuals to enter and succeed in a registered apprenticeship program. So think of a pre-apprenticeship program as almost a career exploration opportunity that can launch someone into an actual apprenticeship program. In the state of Florida right now, we have just over 20,000 total apprentices in 156 occupations. And there are almost 4,500 businesses involved in working with those apprentices. The average wage of individuals that are in an apprenticeship program is $15 an hour. And upon completion of an apprenticeship program, on average, folks are earning about $50,000 per year, and 94% of those folks who have completed an apprenticeship program are still employed 9 months later, right? So some very good, strong, just in general workforce statistics there. The other area where there's an opportunity to continue to build Florida's workforce is in entrepreneurship training. And I'd like to talk about how these two worlds kind of join together. You still hear from HR professionals throughout the country and the state that they cannot find qualified people, right? And some studies will show that up to 80% of HR professionals report they can't find qualified people. So it's a talent issue and qualification issue. It's not that there aren't people, there's just not people who have the skills and qualifications that they're looking for. In 2018, CareerSource Florida released a skills gap survey and found that some of the top skill gaps that are out there in the positions versus the candidates that are available for those positions are some things you've heard already: communication, reliability, leadership, problem solving. You heard some of these skills being talked about as being taught in after-school programs. These are also skills that youth typically learn in their first job, right? That they get. And these earn and learn and on-the-job training experiences also provide that. You heard Mr. Baptiste in the pre-apprenticeship program talk about some of those communication skills that he learned in the pre-apprenticeship program. But also can be learned through entrepreneurship experiences. In the state of Florida, we have 2.5 million small businesses in the state. 40% of the private sector workforce is employed by small businesses, and half of the state's GDP comes from small businesses, right? So where these worlds connect with entrepreneurship and technical training, there are some really exciting things can happen. From an academic standpoint, a study from 2012 showed that students that are in a technical course and earning a certification had higher GPAs, higher attendance, right? We commissioned a study on the gig economy. So typically when people think about the gig economy, they think of Lyft, Uber, things like that, on-demand kind of jobs. But estimated about 26% of the US workforce pursued independent work, but it's so much more broad than just on-demand services like ride shares or transportation. Information technology, construction, real estate, professional and technical services. It was so wide where people are taking credentials and skills that they learned and earning a living, whether it be a side hustle or a permanent type job. So these types of skills with entrepreneurship, coupled with equipping our youth with technical credentials as well, can be a really powerful combination in building Florida's workforce. So with that, I'll transition, I'll turn it over to our final panelists and look forward to answering questions that come from the group. So thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Before Mary speaks, I just want to remind everyone that you can use the chat function over in Whova or in Zoom to submit your questions. We do have a few that have come in, so thank you for those, but please continue to submit your questions. Mary.
Awesome. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And I'm learning a lot, so I hope you all are learning a lot as well. We can go to the first slide, Holly. In case you are not familiar, Florida has a pretty robust network of local education foundations aligned with almost every countywide school district in the state. So if you want to just hit that first slide, Holly. Mine is not showing correctly.
It might be buffering, but it should be there for you.
Okay, no worries. So I think this photo was taken one of the last times that we got together in person. We're planning our 5th virtual conference of these folks right now. And they are the leaders of these education foundations. There was legislation written in Florida about 35 years ago that said there could be a direct support organization aligned with countywide school districts. And most of our folks were started pursuant to that statute. But a number were started independently or more autonomously from their district. And today they're about 50-50. It's a diverse state. So some of our members have a staff of 5, 10, 20, 30 folks, and they have a robust menu of programs. Others, about 30%, are completely volunteer driven, either community driven outward or a multiple hats wearing school system person inward, sort of coordinating the activities of a board to raise funds and try to have an impact. But collectively, what they're about is really bringing local communities together to innovate learning, power potential of students and teachers, and celebrate success. A lot of our folks just came off their teacher recognition events, which look very different this year, but most of them virtual or hybrid. Next slide, please, Holly. I think a couple of these data points Holly mentioned, but our folks do raise about 83 million a year. They raise that through, as you can imagine, fundraisers have been a little bit challenging for the past year, but corporate and foundation grants, civic organizations, philanthropic organizations. Also,
it worked out so great a second ago.
Yes, it did. Huh.
Do you want me to try again, Mary, or do you want to try to jump on it?
I'll just go forward and let you try to jump on it.
Okay.
Okay, so these folks are led by, a lot do have staff, but about 30% don't. They're volunteer driven. They have 1,100 board members. 80% of those board members are business and community people working in partnership, often the superintendent, a school board member, maybe teacher of the year are on board. But most of them are about business and community folks who are engaged and want to make a difference in their local schools. They also engage almost 17,000 volunteers. Those volunteers might be serving on the foundation board or committees, but they are often also mentoring, maybe reading support. Some of our folks engage AmeriCorps volunteers. A lot of them.
No, we just see your desktop. A second ago we had you. So if you'll just hit stop share on your screen.
Got it.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you guys for bearing with us. I'll get it up there and there'll be pictures momentarily.
No worries. Holly also mentioned our matching grant. That's the perfect slide. That's exactly where we want to be. And that is a powerful tool that we've had to be able to encourage private sector investment and involvement in public schools through this program that we've administered for the past 20 years. And it could be used in any of these program areas. Dan was talking about apprenticeships and career certification programs. That's one of the 6 areas. Sometimes our folks are the seed money to start a program or even a club to see if there's enough interest in starting a program in aviation or a number of areas. Sometimes they augment government funds, or they eliminate barriers for students to fully participate. Like if they get a chance to go to competition or they need support with equipment or things to successfully complete a program. Certainly any programs to increase graduation rates, one-on-one literacy support and support for low-performing students, STEM and any type of teaching quality initiatives, whether that is classroom grants for teachers to do something innovative with their students or over and above what they could ordinarily do, or bringing teachers together to learn from one another. Our Miami-Dade and our Broward member just did their teacher-to-teacher. Not on my screen. What are you guys seeing?
Oh my.
That's okay.
It worked so great on the first bit.
That's no worries. We'll just move to the end. By the way, if you did want to know anything about the matching grant program, there's a section on our website, and there's actually a complete alphabetical list of what the dollars are doing in each district. So if you're not familiar and you want to get familiar with how we're leveraging those state funds, take a look at that on our website. Another thing that we're doing that is kind of new right now is trying to capture some of the positive bright spots that are happening in COVID. And you'll see this on the homepage of our website as well. We know, and we've heard anecdotally from our own network and from a lot of statewide organizations that I interact with, that there are things that we are learning with all this disruption that are actually, kind of positive, and we want to continue post-COVID. So we're trying to make a contribution to surface and document and share those through our network. So if anything you know of, there's a 5-question submission form. We just opened this up last week, but a couple of off-the-cuff examples. One is a school choice fair happening in one district that, rather than everybody needing to go to a sweaty gym on a Tuesday at 6 o'clock, they took it virtual. and learned that they had about 30% more participation, and students could talk individually to participants and get a lot more information. Another one was 3 districts in South Florida had historically Black colleges and universities visit with those students virtually and introduce their network, and they were from all over the country. So that was a pretty cool innovation and certainly could continue post-COVID. So we invite those sort of cross-sector collaborations, and if you get involved in sharing something with us, we'll share back out with you what we learn when this process is done later this spring. And we'll see, what folks are doing that are positive innovations that hopefully will continue. And then wherever you are, I noticed we had Northeast on our website. On the far right is this tab, Connect Local. And then the last slide, I swear, if we can get there. Nope, I'm sorry, the slide before that. There you go. When you go to Connect Local, each of our members is linked there in alphabetical order by county. Remember, we serve the county-wide school districts and their education foundations. You can click right through to their website, to their executive director, to their contact information. And I just want to point out that, this past year has taught us about, there's a lot more fuzzing of home, school, after school, and learning differently about how you interact with partners in your local community.
Mary, you are a champ. Thank you so much. I have hosted countless Zoom meetings, and I have never had that happen to me before. I'm so sorry for the technical glitches. For the 4 or 5 comments and questions that popped in, yes, these slides from Mary are available in the Whova app. And we will, so you can access them there. So now that you've signed up and you've gone through everything, you'll be able to access all of those, including the handouts we showed earlier. I believe even the link to the video that Dan shared with us will be accessible within the information about this agenda item. And on the screen right now, I'm gonna leave it up for just one more moment so that everyone can write down her email address if you need it, or her contact details. Okay. Again, thank you guys so much for bearing with us during the technical difficulties. So we have arrived at our question and answer section of today's, goodness, my computer's freaking out, of today's panel. And we have a handful of questions that have already been submitted, so feel free to keep those coming. The first question, you've all kind of hit upon it a little bit, and I'll let you weigh in some more, is what has been the impact of COVID on programs and activities that you represent? Feel free to jump in.
So Holly, I'll jump in, Stan. So, I think for the workforce system and career source network throughout the state, probably the biggest impact has been how we serve the individuals in the community and the businesses in the community. And really a lot of that's had to do with serving virtually, right? One of the things we did as a state was rolled out a virtual job fair platform, so employers and candidates can continue to connect. But there's some other things that have some bigger impacts that are interesting when you look at the unemployment rates and kind of what's going on there as a result of COVID. From an education standpoint, about 53 to 60% of Floridians who lost income as a result of COVID had less than a high school education or earned a high school diploma and GED only. And you can compare that to 40% of those which are bad with some post-secondary credentialing, right? So there's kind of a big deal. So any of these after-school programs or networks that continue engagement in school and continue toward graduation can be very important. Also, where we saw a lot of job losses, about 65% of job losses were in the 18 to 24 range, right? And that's a pretty big chunk. Now, unemployment, Florida's doing a great job. Our unemployment as of December was 6.1%, which is recovering nicely. Overall for last year, in total, about 7.9% compared to 8.1% nationally. But if you just look at this group of 16 to 19-year-olds, 21.4% unemployment, right? Which is really a lot and much larger than the rest. The other thing that you see with the 16 to 19-year-old range is a 14% overall reduction in the labor force, so the number of those individuals that are out actively looking for work or working, and that's compared to about a 2% overall reduction. So really with that group is really big. An apprenticeship and these earn to learn models can be a real driver for an inclusive economic recovery, right? And I say inclusive from an age standpoint and a race standpoint. 43% of apprentices now are African American or Hispanic ethnicity, where those populations have an 11.2% and 9.5% unemployment respectively. So again, it can be a really great driver and a really great opportunity pathway to reskill or change skills from jobs that may have been lost through the pandemic and learn new skills while not losing wages, right? Because they are earn and learn models to get back into the workforce. So some big impacts economically and unemployment wise in how the career source system through training and credentialing and apprenticeships can help to drive that forward. So thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
I'll jump in. Dan, that was some good stuff. And I'll just say that our after school programs help with providing that support and encouragement for young people to get a higher education. And when they do that, they're in a better space to get through and recover from times like these or recession or what have you, so that we see a higher rate of success on Dan's numbers when we're talking about our young people and the jobs and careers that they have. So that's really important for after school programs. I know a number of them that really focus in on that college prep and that career prep. That's key, and some of them actually providing jobs. So for us meaning Ladies Learning to Lead, we had a setback with COVID, having to cancel our conference. I say statewide, but we actually serve Georgia and Florida. Young ladies from anywhere to 80 to 150 come from all over the states who are accepted into this program for a weekend. It's like a leadership academy, if you will, for the weekend, where they're actually on college campus at FSU, and they get an opportunity to see what it's like to be a college student, to experience that for the weekend. Well, guess what? College is shut down. So we had to shut down our conference last year. And one of our programs, which was actually in partnership with Florida State University to begin in the fall, where our young ladies would be year-round on campus learning everything from college and career prep and beyond, that was canceled as well. So for us, it was a major hit. AMI Kids took a major hit, serving kids after school on site. We are now back up and running at AMI Kids, Gaston and Tallahassee sites, but not at the full capacity, and definitely not like how it was before. And of course, when breakouts happen, like it did a couple weeks ago with COVID, we've got to shut things down if somebody's affected and the kids are not served. So the impacts of COVID have greatly affected the two organizations that I serve. And then with the DJJ piece, usually our job is to travel throughout the state. We're going into the different detention centers and community organizations, and we can't do that right now. So we've had some to come and present to us via Zoom, but typically we have 2 days scheduled to travel and to see these places, talk to these youth, and we haven't been able to function in that way. So COVID has greatly impacted me and the organizations I serve on every level.
I'll just add one quick point to that. And I mean, just circling back to how has COVID affected the programs, after school and summer learning, they've just been pivoting the entire time, whatever the situation, when it was spring to summer, summer to fall, they are the definition of flexibility in transition, because, new rules and new things, whether it's virtual or in person, because they're providing those services. They're providing both of those services depending upon the organization across the state of Florida. So That has been, I think, one of the larger impacts to the program providers is the constant transition. So that has really been a difficult challenge for them, but it is also a testament to the programs that are out there and their flexibility and their ability to still continue to provide those services. So a big testament to their hard work.
Yeah, I would say for our folks, certainly a lot of the pivoting and the, reinventing programs and taking them virtual. But what's been hard also is that role of stepping in the gap. First it was devices and connectivity, and back last April, a few districts were one-to-one devices, but there were no CARES funds. We had no idea how big the digital divide was realistically. So that became a big effort overnight, and a supply chain issue, creativity challenge of hotspots on school buses, and a major equity issue. As that has emerged, now some of our folks are moving more into digital literacy skills for families, not just for education, but also for health, for participation in public life, for jobs, all of those reasons. So a number of our folks have started seeking support and helping on a one-to-one basis, troubleshoot, and kind of whether it's a digital skills, literacy, or language barriers to kind of break through. And that homework gap existed before COVID. So this isn't just a now thing. But it's hard because K-12 budgets are about $22 billion. So that amount we raised, we're proud of, but it's small in comparison. So it has felt a little like putting your finger in the dike of this unending need of funding needs, in particular at the beginning. One of the things I didn't mention, a lot of our folks have teacher resource stores where teachers can get things their kids need or want to provide for them, and sometimes for the school level as well. And our Broward member with their teacher store just calculated that they provided enough Lysol wipes to reach from Fort Lauderdale to Key West and partially back. And it's not a real sexy thing to raise money for or provide, but it was a necessity. And I'm sure after school providers have found the same thing, that keeping a safe environment cannot be understated if you want confidence for people to come. So that's been a challenge, just the kind of moving and shifting to making sure basic needs are met, tagging along with food distribution sites, with books and hygiene items and all of that, and then also the digital piece.
Thank you, Mary. We actually had a question come in while we were talking about that, specifically about the digital divide. So I'm glad that you ventured into that space. We have several more questions coming in, but I really want to focus in on this first one, which is we're talking about advocacy here. Samantha shared a list of bills that I think probably has a lot of crossover with many of the after school programs that we're talking about. We know that you kind of talked a little bit about those. What are some of the tangible activities or actions that our listeners can take to stay engaged in this process, to learn more, to be effective during this session?
I would like to say, get very familiar with your legislators. Go to the My Florida House and Senate sites, look them up individually, find linkage among your supporters in those organizations, in those legislators. Have some open-ended conversations with them about memorable things in their youth that were learning opportunities that were not in the school day. And I bet you would find, like with me, if you asked me that question, 4-H, Girl Scouts, summer camp, that all led to my leadership development. And so I think looking at things more holistically, learning what, if their bill, Samantha provided a great list of legislation, but their names may not be attached to it, but find out what they are attached to, and then find where you connect back with that, whether that's, social emotional learning, soft skill development that is so critical, and that I'm frankly concerned about personally right now, where time is a very fluid thing in the school day, not to mention after school, and you know, level of student engagement, food insecurity, mental health, all of those things. Find linkage between your work and what those legislators have got on their front burner issues.
Great advice.
Mary, that's a great point, and I'll share that. You know, ditto that. That is a great point. The one thing I'll also connect is for the program providers that are listening in, there are opportunities for you to engage, but then there's also opportunities for your youth to engage. So there's a teen town hall coming up April 6th, and that's under the Children's Week Teen Town Hall. That information can be found, and we'll be sending that information out. But that's an opportunity for your youth to learn how to build their voice. There's a YMCA curriculum that's behind that program that leads those youth through those steps, allowing them to engage and participate in asking questions to panelists. And then not only for an individual youth, but programs can get involved in that as well. Even if you're just a community partner, excuse me, not just, but if you're a community partner, not a youth, you can too participate in that, and you can be involved in that process as well, participate by asking questions and being a part of it. So
I concur with both Mary and Brian. My immediate thought was what Mary said: reach out to your legislators. And to connect that with what Brian said, take your young people to meet their legislators. Ladies Learning to Lead has done that many times, and it serves as importance for those young people to understand how the legislative process works. So it also, back to my quote, gives our youth the opportunity to be seen, felt, and heard.
Yeah, and in addition to what all the other panelists say, you know, the other thing I think to watch is funding, right? And then I would encourage anyone who's interested in, you know, in workforce development and whatnot, is engage with your local, you know, career source in your county. That there is one, I assure you. All 67 counties have representation, but engage with the local workforce and help build those success stories. I mean, you saw a great video, but the more of those real success stories that you can build on the ground, and let them see, here's the impact of the funding that you're talking about. Here's the impact of what it is that you're bringing to the table. So when we see things like continued investment on the governor's behalf in apprenticeship and in the local workforce system, those are great things. But I think it's incumbent upon everyone at the local level who's engaging in any capacity with those to have those success stories and to show the people behind the programs that are driving Florida's workforce forward.
Thank you, Dan. That actually brings a perfect transition. We do have time for 2 more questions, but the question that came in actually has to do with funding of the programs you talked about, Dan. Can you talk about how pre-apprenticeship, the entrepreneurship programs, the apprenticeship programs, how are they funded, and where can individuals go to learn where these specific programs are located?
So first and foremost, I think one of the things in your Whova app is a one-pager on apprenticeships, and I would drive everyone to apprenticeflorida.com. It's a great place to start. There are federal and state funding arms for these types of programs. Some of them come through the Career Source Florida system. Some come through a lot come through the Department of Education, right? But being able to see where those grants are, the United States Department of Labor through its Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act is a federal arm. It comes down, U.S. Department of Labor also has a number of federal grants, but then there's a state apprenticeship expansion grant, the Pathways to Prosperity grant that are funded by our state that are working to create these opportunities in the local communities. But that apprenticeflorida.com is a great place to start.
Perfect. The next question is for Brian. The person asking the question has said, can you explain the map overlay and what that means for Florida?
Yeah, so the State of After School report was the step 1 mapping of more than 8,500 after school and summer learning programs throughout the state of Florida. You saw a screen grab of the interactive maps that are available on our website, flafterschool.com. So you can go in and look at your community and see how it measures up in identifying any gaps with programs. And then also if there's any measurements of instances of child welfare or juvenile crime, and how the lack of after-school programming or your availability of after-school programs affects those two numbers. So that's really where that state of after-school report came from, and you got to see a little bit in that in our PowerPoint, but it's a much more interactive map that's available on our website.
Great. Thank you so much, Brian. Okay, I'm going to go, everyone, because we have only 2 minutes left. I'm going to give you like a quick 30-second last thought. And Samantha, I'm going to start with you. Only because it's how it appears on my screen.
I will say that, again, it's so important to allow our youth to have that opportunity to be seen, felt, and heard. So many times our youth feel like they are being ignored, neglected, and they're the ones who are going to take care of us one day. So we need to make sure we look out for our young people in any way that you can. Get involved, advocate for our youth, volunteer. These are amazing organizations. Learn more, reach out to your legislators, and just become more of a youth advocate, because we need more out there looking out for our young people.
Thank you. Mary?
I would say that, we're hearing a lot about learning loss, and we don't know the extent of it yet and how things are going to shape out, and the need for rapid remediation. And I ask you, what kid would sign up for rapid remediation? But what kid would be interested in accelerating in their academics while they're having enrichment and having fun and having a chance to interact with people? So you are really, after-school providers can be a solution to that problem. And we had a webinar on Friday, a look ahead to session, and we had a representative from the Fordham Institute and the American Federation of Teachers, and looking at things from a national level. And their sense is when additional funding comes down from the federal level to states, it's most likely going to need to be informed by local communities. And again, I would have those generative conversations now. Don't think of yourself as just being in this one place of summer or after school, but think of yourself as being a solution to a problem and to helping kids develop resilience and get through this time in our history and come out on the other side with some new skills.
Thank you. Dan?
Absolutely. Look for opportunities to engage our youth in real world experiences. So engaging with the businesses in your community to bring that into the classroom, bring that into the after school program, show them, by the power of reading acceleration, how that translates into their future work. If you're having difficulty engaging with those businesses, engage with your local career source network. We serve job seekers and businesses alike in the local communities where we are. And that really is our role, to bring those entities together, education, business, job seeker, to find that alignment and make sure that there is an alignment with what the businesses need and the employers are looking for, with what the education is providing, and then where you can create those experiential opportunities for youth to really engage in what it is that they're doing. When kids are excited about what they're doing, that's when they excel, that's when they move forward, and that's when they stick with it. And that's what employers are looking for. So look and find for all those opportunities and lean on CareerSource to help. That's what we're here for. Thank you.
Perfect. And Brian?
I would repeat everything that everyone just said, but then also I would say, now is the time for after school summer learning programs to be supportive of in-school work. The connections to career and technical and college access and everything there, and really just bridging the gap. After school and summer learning can be that vehicle and is that vehicle every single day. So now more than ever is the time to support those programs and organizations.
Thank you. Brian, Dan, Mary, Samantha, thank you for being with us today, sharing your knowledge, your outlooks, the strategies for engagement. To our audience, thank you for joining us. We hope this has inspired you to continue forth with your own advocacy efforts. And finally, a quick shout out to the Children's Week Florida staff and all of the sponsors who've made this event possible. What's apparent to me through this advocacy series and all of the other upcoming events is that here in Florida, we have many child and youth advocates and many, many worthwhile causes. So I just want to take a moment to challenge each of you, our panelists, as well as our audience, that if you had to name one deserving person, an individual who's worked and advocated on behalf of Florida's children, youth, and families across the state and over the years, who would that person be? Because we have an opportunity to recognize them for the 2021 Child Advocacy Award. It's part of Children's Week, and that nomination window is going to close later this week. So if you have not thought of that person, or if when I said those words, you immediately thought of someone, I want to challenge you to submit that nomination this week. In addition, we are excited to also announce another award with the help of United Healthcare, and it is focused on teens and youth. So I want to echo what Samantha said about giving our youth the opportunity to be seen, felt, and heard. One way you can do that is identifying a young person who has demonstrated great leadership and advocacy efforts right there in their local community and submit their name for this award recognition. Find out details of all of this at www.childrensweek.org. Again, thank you to all of our speakers for spending time with us. We hope you'll join us again next week for our session on social justice, equity, and inclusion, and of course, for the many events that will happen during Children's Week itself. Thank you all and have a great afternoon.